Detective Jake Morrison had worked with the Chicago police for 15 years, but he had never seen a dog like Max. The German Shepherd had a strange silver streak running down his back and eyes that seemed to see things that were not there. Max came to Jake with very little paperwork from a closed military place in Nevada. The people who brought Max said he was special, but they did not say how special. Dr. Helen Carter was the woman who brought Max to the police station. She was a doctor who worked with animals at the military place before it shut down. When she handed Max over to Jake, she said something that made him feel cold inside. She told him that Max could see things that other dogs could not see and that Jake should trust what Max told him even when it did not make sense. Jake thought this was just talk until he saw Max work for the first time. They were checking out a break-in at an electronics store on the south side of the city. The store owner said someone had broken his back door and stolen some computer parts. Jake and Max walked around the store looking for clues like they always did. But when they got to the back alley, Max started acting very strange. The dog began barking at what looked like empty air. Max was not barking at the broken door or at any person or thing that Jake could see. He was barking at nothing, but he would not stop. The barking went on for 20 minutes and Max was very upset. His hair stood up on his back and he kept moving around in circles like he was following something that Jake could not see. Jake checked the area with all his tools. He used his heat scanner to look for warm spots that might show where a person had been. He used his light to look in all the dark corners. He looked for footprints and fingerprints and anything else that might tell him what had happened. But there was nothing there that he could find. Other police officers came to help when Jake called them. They looked at Max and thought the dog was just confused or maybe sick. One officer said that maybe Max needed more training. Another said that maybe the dog was not right for police work. But Jake had learned to trust his feelings over the years, and something about the way Max was acting made him think there really was something there. Jake made the other officers put yellow tape around the alley and keep people away. He called the science team to come and look at the area, even though he could not tell them what they were looking for. 3 hours later, the science people found something very small that they could only see with special tools. It was tiny pieces of metal that were not like any metal they had seen before. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was not happy when Jake told her what happened. She said that dogs do not find things that are not there, and that maybe Jake was not good at working with dogs. She said that maybe Max needed to go back to dog school, but Jake asked her to let him keep working with Max for a few more weeks to see what would happen. That night, Jake took Max home to his small apartment. He lived alone and had never had a dog before, but Max seemed to like being there. Jake spent hours on his computer trying to find out more about the place where Max came from. What he found made him very worried. The Blackwood Research Institute was the name of the military place. Jake found some papers on the internet that said the place had been doing secret tests on animals to make them better at finding things. The tests were called Project Watchdog, and they were trying to make animals that could find things from outer space. Most of the papers about Project Watchdog were secret, but Jake found a few that regular people could read. The paper said that the military was worried about visitors from other worlds and wanted animals that could tell when these visitors were around. The paper said that some animals were given special medicine to make their eyes and ears work better. Jake read the papers 3 times to make sure he understood them right. The military had been trying to make dogs that could see and hear things that people could not see and hear. They wanted dogs that could find spaceships and space people, even when these things were hiding. The papers said that the tests worked, but then they stopped talking about what happened next. Max slept on the floor next to Jake's bed that night, but Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about what Max had found at the electronics store, and about the metal pieces that should not exist. He thought about Dr. Carter and her warning about trusting Max even when things did not make sense. He thought about Project Watchdog and dogs that could see visitors from space. The next morning, Jake decided to test Max in a different way. He took the dog to Lincoln Park, where there were lots of people and dogs and nothing strange should be happening. But when they got to a certain part of the park, Max started acting the same way he had acted at the electronics store. The dog began barking at empty air and would not stop. His hair stood up and he kept looking at the same spot like something was there. Jake looked where Max was looking but saw only trees and grass. He walked to the spot and waved his hands around but felt nothing. He used his heat scanner again but found nothing hot. But Max kept barking and would not move away from the spot. Other people in the park started looking at them like they were crazy. After 30 minutes, Jake decided to mark the spot on his phone so he could remember where it was. He wrote down the exact location using the GPS numbers. Then he took Max away from the park, but the dog kept looking back at the spot like he did not want to leave. That evening, Jake called Dr. Carter and asked her to meet him for coffee. He needed to know more about what had been done to Max and why the dog was acting so strange. Dr. Carter agreed to meet him the next day at a coffee shop downtown. She sounded worried when Jake told her about what Max had been doing. Jake spent that night looking at maps of the city and marking the places where Max had acted strange. The electronics store and the park spot were on opposite sides of the city, but when Jake drew a line between them on the map, something interesting happened. The line went right through the downtown area where a lot of strange things had been reported over the years. Jake had been a police officer long enough to know that patterns usually meant something important was happening. Max was not just finding random strange things. The dog was finding things that were connected to each other in some way. Jake did not know what that connection was yet, but he was starting to think that Dr. Carter and Project Watchdog had created something much more powerful than anyone had planned. Jake met Dr. Carter at the coffee shop on State Street the next morning. She looked tired and kept looking around like she thought someone might be watching them. When Jake told her about Max's behavior at the electronics store and the park, she became very quiet. She stirred her coffee for a long time before she started talking. Dr. Carter told Jake that Max was not just trained at Blackwood Research Institute. The dog had been changed in ways that most people would not believe. She said that Max's eyes and ears and nose had been made better using science that was very new and very secret. The military wanted dogs that could find things that normal dogs could not find. She explained that Max could detect special signals that came from machines that were not made by people. The military was worried that visitors from other planets were watching Earth and using technology that people could not see. They wanted dogs like Max to find these hidden machines and warn people about them. Jake asked her if she really believed that creatures from space were on Earth. Dr. Carter looked at him very seriously and said that after working at Blackwood for 5 years, she had seen things that made her believe anything was possible. She said that Max's reactions meant that something was definitely out there, and it was still working after all these years. Dr. Carter gave Jake a small device that looked like a radio. She said it could detect the same kind of signals that Max could detect, but not as well as the dog could. She told him to carry it with him when he worked with Max and see if the machine showed anything when Max started barking at empty air. After Dr. Carter left, Jake drove back to the park where Max had acted strange the day before. When they got to the same spot, Max started barking again just like before. Jake turned on the device that Dr. Carter had given him and watched the small screen. Numbers started moving on the screen and a small light began blinking red. The device was finding something that Jake could not see. Jake spent the rest of the day driving around the city with Max. Every time Max started barking, Jake would stop and check the device. The pattern was always the same. When Max barked, the device would show red lights and moving numbers. When Max was quiet, the device showed nothing. The dog was definitely finding real things, even though Jake could not see them. That evening, Jake went to the police station library and started looking through old case files. He wanted to see if other strange things had happened in the places where Max had found signals. What he found made his hands shake as he read. In 1974, a man named Dr. Nathan Pierce had disappeared from a warehouse in the same area where Max had found signals. Dr. Pierce was a scientist who worked on secret projects for the government. The police report said that Dr. Pierce had been working on something called Project Blue Horizon, which was about studying strange lights in the sky that people sometimes saw. The report said that Dr. Pierce had told his friends that he thought visitors from space were already on Earth. He said they were watching people and studying them like scientists study animals. Dr. Pierce had been trying to find where these visitors were hiding their machines when he disappeared. The police had looked for Dr. Pierce for 6 months but never found him. They decided that he had probably run away to Russia because that was something that scared scientists, sometimes did during the Cold War. But Jake noticed that the warehouse where Dr. Pierce disappeared was exactly where Max had started barking. 2 days ago, Jake kept reading through old files and found more cases that seemed connected. In 1975, a woman named Dr. Margaret Walsh had disappeared from Northwestern University. She was studying languages and had been working with Dr. Pierce on Project Blue Horizon. In 1976, a man named Professor Richard Hayes had disappeared from the University of Chicago. He had been studying rocks and minerals that were found near places where people saw strange lights. All of these people had been working on the same kinds of things that Dr. Pierce had been working on. They all thought that visitors from space were on Earth, and they were all trying to find proof. And they had all disappeared within 2 years of each other. Their cases had all been closed quickly with explanations that did not really explain anything. Jake made copies of all the files and took them home. He spread them out on his kitchen table and looked at the addresses where each person had last been seen. When he marked these addresses on a city map, he saw something that made his heart beat faster. The addresses formed a pattern around the city, just like the places where Max had been finding signals. The next day, Jake took Max to the warehouse where Dr. Pierce had disappeared. The building was old and empty and had been locked up for many years. But when Max got close to the building, he started acting more excited than Jake had ever seen him. The dog was pulling hard on his leash and whining and trying to get inside the building. Jake called the building owner and got permission to look inside. When they opened the front door, Max ran straight to a corner of the main room and started barking louder than ever. The device that Dr. Carter had given Jake was showing red lights all over the screen and making beeping sounds. Jake searched the corner where Max was barking, but found only old concrete walls and floor. But when he looked more carefully, he noticed that one section of the floor looked different from the rest. It was the same concrete, but it seemed newer, like it had been replaced sometime after the building was built. That evening, Jake got permission to bring a construction crew to the warehouse. They used special tools to look under the concrete without breaking it. The tools showed that there was an empty space under the floor. Something had been buried there and then covered up with new concrete. Jake got a court order to dig up the floor. What they found was not what anyone expected. Under the concrete was a metal room that looked like it had been built with technology that was much more advanced than anything from 1974. The walls were made of material that Jake had never seen before, and the room had no doors or windows. Inside the metal room, they found Dr. Pierce's research papers and equipment. But they also found something else that made Jake's blood turn cold. There were detailed drawings of the city showing every place where Max had been finding signals. Dr. Pierce had found the same pattern 50 years ago and had been mapping it when he disappeared. The drawings showed that the signals were coming from machines that were placed all around the city in a careful pattern. Dr. Pierce had written notes saying that the machines were watching stations used by visitors from space to study people. He had figured out where all the machines were hidden and had been planning to make contact with whoever was operating them. The last page of Dr. Pierce's notes was dated 3 days before he disappeared. He had written that he knew the visitors were aware that he had found their machines. He said they had agreed to meet with him to talk about what they were doing on Earth. He wrote that this could be the first time that people and space visitors would talk to each other. But Dr. Pierce had never come back from that meeting. His body was not in the metal room, and there was no sign of what had happened to him. Jake realized that 50 years ago, Dr. Pierce had discovered the same thing that Max was discovering now, and Jake was probably going to have to make the same choice that Dr. Pierce had made. Jake could not sleep for 3 nights after finding Dr. Pierce's hidden room. He kept thinking about the drawings and notes that showed a pattern of machines watching the city. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the detailed maps that Dr. Pierce had made 50 years ago. The maps that showed exactly where Max was finding signals today. Max seemed to understand that something important was happening. The dog stayed close to Jake all the time and would not eat very much. Sometimes Max would sit by the window and stare out at the city like he was watching for something. Jake noticed that Max always looked in the direction of the places where they had found the strongest signals. Jake decided to test Dr. Pierce's maps by taking Max to every location that was marked on the drawings. The first place was a small park near the lake. When they got there, Max started barking immediately. The device that Dr. Carter had given Jake showed red lights just like before. Dr. Pierce had been right about this location 50 years ago. The second place was behind a grocery store on the west side. Again, Max found signals and the device confirmed them. The third place was near a school and the fourth was in an alley downtown. Every single location that Dr. Pierce had marked on his maps still had signals that Max could detect. Whatever Dr. Pierce had found was still there and still working. Jake realized that he was looking at a surveillance system that had been operating for at least 50 years. Someone or something had placed machines all around Chicago to watch what people were doing. The machines were so well hidden that normal people could not see them, but they were definitely real and they were definitely still working. Jake called Dr. Carter and asked her to meet him again. This time she chose a restaurant outside the city where she said it would be safer to talk. When Jake told her about Dr. Pierce's room and the maps, she became very pale. She said that finding those papers meant that Jake was now in the same danger that Dr. Pierce had been in 50 years ago. Dr. Carter explained that the military had known about Dr. Pierce's work, but they could never find his research after he disappeared. They had been looking for his papers for decades because they proved that the surveillance system was real. The military had created Project Watchdog to find dogs that could detect the hidden machines because they could not find the machines any other way. She told Jake that Blackwood Research Institute had been shut down because too many people were asking questions about what they were doing there. The military decided it was safer to close the whole place and spread the dogs like Max to different police departments around the country. They hoped that police officers with the special dogs would find the surveillance system and report it back to them. Jake asked Dr. Carter why the military had not told him about any of this when they gave him Max. She said that the military had learned that people worked better when they discovered things for themselves. If they had told Jake about space visitors and surveillance systems, he would not have believed them. But finding the proof himself made Jake understand that it was all real. Dr. Carter warned Jake that his investigation had probably been noticed by whoever was running the surveillance system. She said that Dr. Pierce had been taken because he got too close to the truth. She told Jake that he needed to be very careful about what he did next because the same thing could happen to him. But Jake could not stop investigating. He felt like he owed it to Dr. Pierce and the other missing scientists to finish what they had started. He also felt responsible for Max, who had been created to find these hidden machines. Jake decided that he would continue mapping the surveillance system, but he would be more careful about how he did it. Jake started working at night when fewer people would notice what he was doing. He would take Max to different parts of the city and let the dog guide him to the signal sources. Jake used Dr. Carter's device to confirm what Max found, and he made his own maps to compare with Dr. Pierce's drawings. After 2 weeks of night work, Jake had confirmed that Dr. Pierce's maps were completely accurate. Every location that Dr. Pierce had marked 50 years ago still had active signals. But Jake also found something that Dr. Pierce had not known about. There were new signal sources that had been added since Dr. Pierce made his maps. The new signals formed a pattern that surrounded the old ones like a bigger circle around a smaller circle. Someone had expanded the surveillance system over the past 50 years. They were watching more of the city now than they had been watching when Dr. Pierce was doing his research. Jake counted all the signal sources on his maps and found there were exactly 140, 4 of them arranged in a perfect geometric pattern around Chicago. The number and the pattern were too precise to be accidents. Someone had planned this system very carefully to cover every part of the city with their watching stations. Jake noticed that the signals were stronger at certain times of the day. They were weakest during the morning rush hour when lots of people were moving around the city. They were strongest late at night when most people were sleeping. Jake thought this meant that the watchers were trying not to interfere with normal human activities. One night, while Jake was mapping signals near the university, he found something that made him stop, breathing for a moment. Max led him to a building that looked exactly like all the other buildings around it. But when Jake checked Dr. Pierce's notes, he saw that this was where Dr. Margaret Walsh had been working when she disappeared. The building was now used by a private research company that studied languages from around the world. Jake looked up the company on the internet and found that it had been started in 1975, just a few months after Dr. Walsh disappeared. The company claimed to study ancient languages, but Jake noticed that most of their work was about trying to understand signals and codes. Jake realized that Dr. Walsh might not have disappeared the same way that Dr. Pierce had. Maybe she had been given a choice to work with the Watchers instead of being taken away. Maybe the language research company was a cover for continuing her work on understanding communications from space visitors. Jake found similar patterns with the other missing scientists. Professor Hayes had been studying minerals and rocks when he disappeared in 1976. Jake found that a mining company had been started that same year by people who seemed to know exactly where to dig to find rare metals. The company had been more successful than any other mining company in history. Jake began to understand that the space visitors were not just watching people. They were also working with some people to help guide human society in directions that the visitors wanted. The missing scientists had probably been offered jobs working for the visitors instead of being killed or taken away. This made Jake feel both better and worse about his situation. It was good to know that Dr. Pierce and the others were probably still alive somewhere. But it was scary to think that space visitors were actively controlling parts of human society through people who worked for them. Jake decided that he needed to find a way to make contact with the Watchers himself. Dr. Pierce had tried to do this 50 years ago and had succeeded in arranging a meeting. But Jake did not know how Dr. Pierce had made contact or where the meeting had taken place. He would have to figure out his own way to reach out to the beings who had been watching Chicago for so many years. Jake spent days studying Dr. Pierce's notes, trying to find clues about how the scientist had made contact with the Watchers. The papers were detailed about mapping the surveillance system, but they did not say much about how Dr. Pierce had arranged to meet with the space visitors. Jake found only one hint in the very last page of notes. Dr. Pierce had written about something called the convergence point. He said this was where all the watching signals came together and where the control center for the whole system was located. Dr. Pierce had written that if someone wanted to make contact with the Watchers, they would have to go to the convergence point and wait for a response. Jake looked at all the maps and tried to figure out where the convergence point might be. He drew lines connecting all the signal sources that Max had found and looked for the place where the most lines crossed. The mathematics was complicated, but Jake finally found the spot that seemed to be at the center of everything. The convergence point was located in Lincoln Park near the zoo. Jake remembered that this was close to where Max had first started barking at empty air. When Jake looked at city records, he found that there was a small maintenance building in that exact spot. The building had been built in 1973, which was 1 year before Dr. Pierce disappeared. Jake and Max went to Lincoln Park the next evening when the zoo was closed and fewer people were around. The maintenance building looked normal from the outside, but Max became very excited when they got close to it. The dog was pulling on his leash and whining like he wanted to get inside the building right away. Jake walked around the building looking for a way to get inside. The doors were locked, but Jake noticed that one of the locks looked much newer and more complicated than the others. It was an electronic lock that did not match the simple wooden building. Jake thought this was strange for a basic maintenance shed. Using his police tools, Jake was able to open the electronic lock. Inside the building, he found what looked like normal maintenance equipment like lawnmowers and cleaning supplies. But Max ran straight to the back wall and started barking and scratching at what looked like solid concrete. Jake examined the wall more carefully and found that part of it was actually a hidden door. When he pressed on certain spots, the door slid open to reveal stairs leading down into the ground. Max ran down the stairs immediately and Jake followed with his flashlight ready. The underground tunnel was not like anything Jake had expected. The walls were made of the same strange material that had been in Dr. Pierce's hidden room. The tunnel glowed with a soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Jake's detection device was showing red lights and beeping sounds that were much stronger than anything he had seen before. The tunnel led to a larger underground room that was clearly not built by humans. The ceiling was too high and the walls curved in ways that did not make sense for human construction. Strange symbols were carved into the walls and the air hummed with energy that made Jake's skin feel tingly. In the center of the room, Jake found Dr. Pierce's final laboratory. There were computers and equipment that looked much more advanced than anything from 1974. Some of the machines were still running and showed displays with numbers and symbols that Jake could not understand. Max seemed comfortable in the room like he had been there before. Jake found more of Dr. Pierce's research papers scattered around the laboratory. These papers were different from the ones in the warehouse. They showed that Dr. Pierce had been working in this underground room for weeks before he disappeared. He had been in direct contact with the Watchers and had been learning about their technology and their plans for Earth. One set of papers showed drawings of the Watchers themselves. They looked somewhat like people, but taller and thinner with larger eyes and longer fingers. Dr. Pierce had written that they were very intelligent and very old. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years and had been watching Earth since before humans learned to write. According to Dr. Pierce's notes, the Watchers were scientists from another world who studied developing civilizations. They watched planets where intelligent life was growing to see how different species solved problems and created societies. Earth was one of hundreds of worlds that they were studying at the same time. Dr. Pierce had learned that the Watchers were not planning to hurt humans or take over the Earth. They were simply gathering information about how human society worked, but they were also making small changes to guide human development in directions that would help humans survive and grow stronger. The papers showed that the Watchers had prevented several disasters that would have destroyed human civilization. They had stopped wars by influencing the decisions of important leaders. They had guided scientific discoveries that helped humans solve problems with disease and hunger. They had been secretly helping humanity for thousands of years, but Dr. Pierce had also learned something that worried him. The Watchers were planning to end their study of Earth soon. They had been watching humans for long enough to understand how human society worked. They were getting ready to move on to study other worlds and other species. Before they left, the Watchers wanted to choose some humans to come with them and continue studying other civilizations. They were looking for humans who were smart enough and brave enough to help them understand how different species thought and acted. Dr. Pierce had been offered the chance to join them on their travels to other stars. Jake found Dr. Pierce's final message recorded on one of the advanced computers. Dr. Pierce explained that he had decided to go with the Watchers because he believed it was the most important thing he could do for humanity. By learning about other civilizations, he could help the Watchers understand what made humans special and worth protecting. Dr. Pierce said that other humans would be chosen to join the Watchers over the coming years. These humans would serve as representatives of Earth and would help decide what happened to human civilization in the future. Dr. Pierce hoped that the humans who were chosen would be wise and would always remember their responsibility to their home planet. The recording ended with Dr. Pierce saying that he had left instructions for how other humans could contact the Watchers if they wanted to volunteer to join them. The instructions were hidden in the laboratory and would only be found by someone who was smart enough and determined enough to solve the puzzle of the surveillance system. Jake realized that Max had led him to this place because the dog had been programmed to find humans who might be suitable to work with the Watchers. Max was not just a detection device for finding alien technology. The dog was also a test to see if his human partner was capable of understanding the bigger picture of what was happening on Earth. Jake looked around the laboratory and saw devices that could probably communicate directly with the Watchers. He understood that he was being offered the same choice that Dr. Pierce had been offered 50 years ago. He could try to contact the Watchers and volunteer to join their study of other worlds, or he could leave the laboratory and try to forget what he had learned. But Jake also realized that there might be other choices that Dr. Pierce had not considered. Maybe there was a way to work with the Watchers without leaving Earth. Maybe humans could help with the study of other civilizations while still protecting and guiding their own planet. Jake decided that he needed to learn more before making any decisions about his future. Jake spent hours in Dr. Pierce's underground laboratory studying the alien equipment and trying to understand how it worked. Max seemed to know his way around the room and led Jake to different machines that were still running after 50 years. The dog would sit next to certain devices and look at Jake like he was trying to tell him something important. One machine had a screen that showed a map of the whole world with thousands of tiny lights scattered across every continent. Jake realized he was looking at all the surveillance systems that the Watchers had placed on Earth. Chicago was just one small part of a global network that monitored human civilization everywhere. Another machine showed what looked like television screens, but instead of regular TV shows, they displayed scenes from different planets. Jake saw cities with buildings that reached up into clouds and flying vehicles that moved without any visible engines. He saw beings that looked somewhat like humans but with different skin colors and body shapes. He was looking at other civilizations that the Watchers were studying. Jake found Dr. Pierce's personal journal hidden inside one of the machines. The journal explained that Dr. Pierce had spent 3 weeks in the underground laboratory learning from the Watchers before he made his final decision. During that time, he had been able to communicate with them using a special device that translated thoughts into language they could understand. The journal described the Watchers as being very ancient and very wise, but also somewhat cold and distant. They cared about studying different species, but they did not form emotional attachments to the beings they studied. To them, humans were interesting subjects, but not friends or partners. Dr. Pierce had found this attitude both fascinating and disturbing. Dr. Pierce wrote that the Watchers had explained their mission to him in detail. They traveled from star to star, studying intelligent life wherever they found it. They had been doing this for millions of years and had studied thousands of different species. Some species they studied developed into peaceful, advanced civilizations. Others destroyed themselves through war or environmental damage. The Watchers collected information about what made some species successful, while others failed. They used this information to write reports that were sent back to their homeworld. The reports helped their own civilization understand the patterns of intelligent life in the galaxy and plan for future contact with newly discovered species. But Dr. Pierce had learned that the Watchers also did more than just observe. When they found a species that showed promise for becoming an advanced civilization, they would provide subtle guidance to help that species avoid common mistakes. They had been providing this guidance to humanity for thousands of years. The Watchers had influenced human development by inspiring certain discoveries and inventions at the right times. They had prevented some wars by influencing the decisions of leaders. They had guided scientific progress to help humans solve problems with disease and environmental damage. Much of human success was due to their careful interventions. Jake read that Dr. Pierce had asked the Watchers why they helped some species but not others. The Watchers explained that they only helped species that showed certain characteristics. The species had to be curious about the universe and willing to learn from others. They had to be capable of working together instead of always fighting. And they had to show respect for life and for their home planet. Humanity had demonstrated all of these characteristics, which was why the Watchers had decided to help human civilization survive and grow. But the Watchers were also testing humanity to see if humans were ready for the next step in their development. They wanted to know if humans could handle the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. Dr. Pierce's journal revealed that his disappearance had been a test for other humans who might discover the surveillance system. The Watchers wanted to see if other humans would be smart enough and brave enough to follow the clues that Dr. Pierce had left behind. Jake realized that his investigation with Max had been exactly the kind of test that the Watchers were looking for. Jake found the communication device that Dr. Pierce had used to talk with the Watchers. It looked like a combination of a computer and a telescope with a screen that showed complex patterns of light. When Jake touched the screen, the patterns changed and he felt a strange sensation in his mind, like someone was trying to talk to him without using words. Suddenly, the laboratory filled with a soft humming sound, and the walls began to glow brighter. Jake felt the presence of other minds around him even though he could not see anyone else in the room. Max sat very still and quiet, like he was listening to something that only he could hear. Then Jake heard voices in his head that were not his own thoughts. The voices spoke in perfect English, but they had a quality that made it clear they were not human voices. The Watchers were communicating with him directly through the device that Dr. Pierce had used 50 years ago. The Watchers told Jake that they had been monitoring his investigation since the first day that Max started finding their surveillance stations. They had allowed him to discover Dr. Pierce's hidden rooms and papers because they wanted to evaluate whether Jake was suitable for working with them. His persistence and intelligence had impressed them. The Watchers explained that their study of Earth was entering a new phase. They had learned enough about human society to complete their basic research, but they wanted to continue monitoring human development as the species prepared for contact with other civilizations. They needed human partners who could help them understand how humans would react to learning about life on other worlds. Jake was being offered the same choice that Dr. Pierce had been offered. He could join the Watchers and travel with them to study other species on other planets. He would learn about civilizations that humans could not imagine and help determine how humanity should be introduced to the galactic community. But the Watchers also offered Jake a different option that they had not offered to Dr. Pierce. Jake could remain on Earth and serve as a liaison between the Watchers and humanity. He would help prepare humans for eventual contact with alien civilizations, while continuing to live a normal life on his home planet. The Watchers explained that they had learned from their experience with Dr. Pierce and the other scientists who had joined them. Taking talented humans away from Earth weakened humanity's ability to develop independently. They now preferred to work with humans who remained connected to their own society. Jake would be given enhanced knowledge about alien technology and civilization. He would help identify other humans who were ready to learn about life beyond Earth. He would also help the Watchers understand human culture and psychology better, so they could provide more effective guidance to human society. In return, Jake would have to keep the existence of the Watchers secret from most humans. He would only be allowed to share the truth with other humans who had proven themselves ready to handle such knowledge. He would essentially become a secret guardian helping to guide humanity toward a future among the stars. The Watchers told Jake that he did not have to decide immediately. They would give him time to consider both options and understand what each choice would mean for his life. But they also warned him that once he made his decision, there would be no going back. Whether he chose to leave Earth or stay and work with them, his life would be forever changed. Jake asked about Max and learned that the dog had been specifically designed to find humans like Jake, who could work with the Watchers. Max would remain with Jake regardless of which choice he made. The dog would continue to help with the work of preparing humanity for its future, among other intelligent species. Jake left the underground laboratory that night with his mind spinning from everything the Watchers had told him. They had given him 1 week to make his decision about joining them or becoming their liaison on Earth. During that week, he would have access to the laboratory and could learn more about their technology and their plans for humanity. Max seemed different after their encounter with the Watchers. The dog was calmer and more focused, like he understood that his real mission was finally beginning. Max no longer barked at the surveillance stations around the city. Instead, he would sit quietly and watch them like he was monitoring their activity for Jake. Jake could not concentrate on his regular police work during that week. He kept thinking about the choice he had to make and what it would mean for his life and for humanity. He also worried about whether he was the right person to represent Earth in dealings with an advanced alien civilization. Dr. Carter called Jake during the week and asked to meet with him again. When they met, she seemed to know that something important had happened, even though Jake had not told her about finding the laboratory. She said that other enhanced animals around the country had been acting differently, and the military was asking questions about what was causing the change. Jake decided to trust Dr. Carter with the truth about what he had discovered. He told her about the underground laboratory, and about meeting the Watchers, and about the choice they had offered him. Dr. Carter listened without saying anything, but Jake could see that she was not completely surprised by what he was telling her. When Jake finished his story, Dr. Carter revealed that she had been hoping this day would come for many years. She explained that she had known about the Watchers when she worked at Blackwood Research Institute. The military had created Project U, Watchdog specifically to find humans who could work with the Watchers as partners instead of just subjects. Dr. Carter had been chosen to deliver Max to Jake because the Watchers had identified Jake as a potential liaison through their surveillance of the police department. They had been watching Jake for months and had determined that he had the right combination of intelligence, curiosity, and integrity to handle contact with an alien civilization. Dr. Carter told Jake that several other enhanced animals had been placed with police officers and military personnel around the country. The Watchers were looking for multiple humans who could serve as liaisons in different parts of the world. Jake was not the only person facing this choice, but he might be the first to actually make contact with the Watchers directly. Jake asked Dr. Carter what she thought he should do. She said that the decision had to be his alone, but she believed that humanity needed people like Jake to help guide the species toward a future among the stars. She said that the Watchers were offering humanity an incredible opportunity, but only if humans could prove they were ready for it. Jake spent hours in the underground laboratory every night that week learning about the Watchers and their technology. He discovered that they came from a star system more than 100 light years from Earth. Their civilization was millions of years old, and they had developed technology that seemed like magic compared to human science. The Watchers showed Jake images of their home world, which was covered with cities that floated in the air, and oceans that had been turned into vast libraries containing the knowledge of thousands of species. They showed him their spacecraft, which were so large that entire human cities could fit inside them. They showed him other planets where civilizations had developed in ways that humans had never imagined. But Jake also learned that the galaxy was not always a peaceful place. Some species became aggressive when they developed advanced technology and tried to conquer other worlds. The Watchers and other peaceful civilizations had to work together to protect developing species from these aggressive ones. The Watchers explained that Earth was located in a part of the galaxy where several aggressive species were expanding their territories. Humanity would eventually be discovered by these species and would need to be prepared to defend itself or to join with other peaceful civilizations for protection. The Watchers wanted to help prepare humanity for this future, but they could not do it openly without risking interference from the aggressive species. They needed human partners who could work secretly to guide human development in the right directions. This was why they needed people like Jake to serve as liaisons. Jake learned that if he chose to become a liaison, he would be given access to advanced technology that would help him in his work. He would be able to communicate with the Watchers whenever necessary and would receive guidance about how to help humanity prepare for contact with other species. But Jake would also have to recruit and train other humans to help with this work. He would need to identify people who were ready to learn the truth about life beyond Earth and who could handle the responsibility of keeping that knowledge secret until humanity was ready for open contact. Jake asked the Watchers what would happen if he chose to travel with them instead of staying on Earth. They showed him images of other planets where they were conducting studies and explained that he would help them understand how different species thought and behaved. His knowledge of human psychology would be valuable in studying species that were similar to humans, but the Watchers also made it clear that choosing to leave Earth would mean giving up his human life forever. He would be transformed to survive in different environments and would gain abilities that would make it impossible for him to return to normal human society. He would become something between human and alien. Jake realized that staying on Earth as a liaison was really the only choice that allowed him to remain truly human, while still helping both humanity and the Watchers. He would be able to continue his life as a police officer while secretly working to prepare his species for a larger role in the galaxy. On the last night before he had to make his decision, Jake sat in the underground laboratory with Max and thought about everything he had learned. He thought about Dr. Pierce and the other scientists who had chosen to join the Watchers and wondered if they were happy with their decision. He thought about the responsibility he would have if he became a liaison and whether he was strong enough to handle that responsibility. Jake also thought about what would happen to humanity if people like him did not step forward to help guide the species toward the stars. The Watchers had made it clear that humanity would eventually have to face the reality of life beyond Earth, whether they were prepared for it or not. Jake could help make sure that humanity was ready for that day. Max seemed to sense that Jake was ready to make his decision. The dog walked over to the communication device and sat next to it like he was waiting for Jake to call the Watchers and tell them what he had chosen. Jake realized that Max had been his guide through this whole journey, and that the dog was still guiding him toward the choice that was best for everyone. Jake touched the communication device and felt the familiar sensation of the Watchers connecting with his mind. He told them that he had decided to become their liaison on Earth, rather than traveling with them to other worlds. He wanted to help prepare humanity for contact with alien civilizations while remaining connected to his own species and his home planet. The Watchers expressed satisfaction with Jake's choice. They told him that they had hoped he would choose to stay on Earth because they needed human partners who truly understood human society. Jake's decision to remain with his own species showed the kind of loyalty and wisdom that would make him effective in his new role. The Watchers began Jake's training immediately. They connected his mind directly to their knowledge systems and began teaching him about alien technology and galactic politics. The information flowed into Jake's brain faster than he could process it, but somehow his mind was able to absorb and understand everything. Jake learned about the history of the galaxy and the different species that controlled various regions of space. He learned about the technologies that advanced civilizations used for travel between stars and communication across vast distances. He learned about the social and political structures that allowed different species to work together peacefully. Most importantly, Jake learned about the threats that humanity would face in the coming decades. Several aggressive species were expanding their territories toward Earth and would discover human civilization within the next 50 years. Humanity needed to develop better technology and stronger social unity to survive contact. With these hostile aliens, the Watchers showed Jake how they had been subtly guiding human development to prepare for these future challenges. They had influenced scientific discoveries that would lead to better space travel and weapons technology. They had encouraged social movements that promoted cooperation between different human cultures. They had prevented wars that would have weakened humanity's ability to face external threats, but the Watchers could not continue this guidance without human partners who understood both alien and human perspectives. Jake would need to identify other humans who could handle the truth about life beyond Earth and recruit them to help with the work of preparing humanity for its galactic future. Jake asked the Watchers how he would know which humans were ready for this knowledge. They explained that certain people would be naturally drawn to investigating unexplained phenomena and would persist even when others told them to stop. These people would have the curiosity and determination needed to handle contact with alien civilizations. The Watchers also told Jake that they would provide him with tools to help identify suitable humans. Enhanced animals like Max would be placed with police officers, military personnel, and scientists around the world. These animals would guide their human partners toward discoveries that would test their readiness for larger truths. Jake would coordinate with other liaisons who had been chosen in different countries. Together they would form a secret network of humans working to prepare their species for contact with alien civilizations. They would share information and resources while maintaining absolute secrecy about their true mission. The Watchers gave Jake access to advanced technology that would help him in his work. He received a communication device that would allow him to contact the Watchers or other liaisons anywhere in the world instantly. He received scanning equipment that could detect alien technology and identify humans who had been exposed to alien influence. Most importantly, Jake received enhancement treatments that improved his intelligence, memory, and physical abilities. The treatments were designed to help him handle the stress of working with alien technology while remaining fully human. Unlike the scientists who had joined the Watchers, Jake would keep his human identity and human loyalties. Jake's first assignment was to investigate the companies that had been started by the missing scientists 50 years ago. The Watchers suspected that some of these companies had been compromised by hostile alien species who were trying to influence human development in dangerous directions. Jake discovered that the Language Research Company, started after Dr. Walsh's disappearance, was indeed working for hostile aliens. The company was developing communication technologies that would allow the hostile species to influence human thoughts and behavior. Jake had to find a way to stop their work without revealing his connection to the Watchers. Using his police authority, Jake launched an investigation into the company for suspected fraud and industrial spying. He found evidence that the company was stealing research from universities and selling it to foreign governments. The investigation gave Jake an excuse to shut down the company and confiscate their alien-influenced technology. Jake also investigated the mining company that had been started after Professor Hayes disappeared. This company turned out to be legitimate and was actually helping to prepare humanity for contact with alien civilizations. The company was extracting rare metals that would be needed to build advanced spacecraft and communication systems. Jake learned that Professor Hayes had chosen to work with the Watchers just like Dr. Pierce, but had remained on Earth as a liaison. Hayes had used his geological knowledge to identify mining sites that would provide materials needed for humanity's technological advancement. The mining company was one of several businesses that the Watchers had established to help prepare humanity. Jake's investigation revealed that the Watchers had been working for decades to build a secret infrastructure that would support humanity during the transition to galactic civilization. They had established companies, research institutes, and government programs that would provide the technology and resources needed when contact with other species became public. But Jake also discovered that hostile alien species had been trying to infiltrate this infrastructure and redirect it for their own purposes. The battle for humanity's future was already being fought in secret between different alien factions, and human society was caught in the middle without knowing. Jake realized that his role as a liaison was much more complex than he had initially understood. He was not just preparing humanity for contact with friendly aliens. He was also protecting humanity from hostile aliens who wanted to control or destroy human civilization. The Watchers told Jake that this was why they needed human partners who could operate within human society. Alien technology could be detected by other aliens, but humans working with alien knowledge could remain hidden while they fought to protect their species. Jake understood that his investigation with Max had been just the beginning of a much larger mission. The dog that would not stop barking had led him to discover not just a surveillance system but a secret war for the future of humanity. Jake and other human liaisons would have to win that war if their species was going to survive to see the stars. 5 years had passed since Jake first heard Max barking at empty air in that alley behind the electronics store. Now Jake understood that the air had never been empty. Max had been detecting the beginning of the most important investigation in human history, and Jake had become part of a secret network, working to save humanity from threats that most people could not imagine. Jake continued working as a detective with the Chicago Police Department, but his real job was much more complex. He traveled around the country meeting with other liaisons who had been chosen by the Watchers. Together they coordinated efforts to identify and stop hostile alien influences while preparing selected humans for eventual contact with friendly alien civilizations. Max had lived a long and important life before passing away, peacefully in Jake's apartment. But before Max died, the Watchers had provided Jake with a new partner. Luna was a German Shepherd with the same silver markings as Max and even better enhanced abilities. Luna could detect alien technology from much greater distances and could identify humans who had been exposed to alien influence. Dr. Carter had become Jake's closest partner in the liaison network. She continued working as a veterinarian while secretly training enhanced animals and their human partners. She had developed new techniques for identifying humans who were ready for contact with alien civilizations, and had helped recruit dozens of new liaisons around the world. Jake had also recruited Captain Rodriguez after she proved her ability to handle difficult truths during an investigation involving alien technology. Rodriguez now helped coordinate police responses to alien incidents, while maintaining secrecy about the true nature of these events. She had become an expert at creating cover stories that explained alien activity without revealing the existence of extraterrestrial life. Both his network of human liaisons had grown to include scientists, military officers, government officials, and civilians from every major country on Earth. They worked together to monitor alien activity and guide human development toward technologies and social structures that would help humanity survive in a galaxy full of different species. Jake had learned that the Watchers were part of a larger alliance of peaceful alien civilizations that worked together to protect developing species from aggressive ones. This alliance had been operating for millions of years and had helped thousands of species achieve interstellar civilization without being destroyed by hostile aliens. But Jake had also learned that the alliance was facing its greatest challenge in millions of years. Several aggressive species had formed their own alliance and were conquering large areas of the galaxy. These hostile aliens were approaching the region of space where Earth was located and would discover humanity within the next 20 years. The Watchers and their allies were preparing for a war that would determine the future of intelligent life in the galaxy. Humanity would play a crucial role in this war because humans had developed certain abilities that even advanced alien species found valuable. Human creativity, adaptability, and determination made them ideal partners for the peaceful alliance. Jake's mission had evolved from simply preparing humanity for contact to actively recruiting humans who could help fight in the galactic war. He was looking for people with military experience, scientific knowledge, and leadership abilities who could handle the truth about the coming conflict and help prepare Earth's defenses. The surveillance system that Max had first detected was being expanded and upgraded to serve as an early warning network for hostile alien activity. Jake and other liaisons worked with the Watchers to place new monitoring stations around the world that could detect approaching alien spacecraft and provide advance warning of attacks. Jake had also helped establish secret research facilities where human and alien scientists worked together to develop new technologies for the war effort. These facilities were hidden beneath major cities around the world and were developing weapons and defenses that combined human innovation with alien science. The most important project that Jake was involved with was the development of hybrid human-alien soldiers who could fight effectively against hostile aliens. These soldiers would have enhanced physical and mental abilities while retaining human consciousness and loyalty. Jake helped select the humans who would undergo the transformation process. Jake sometimes wondered what Dr. Pierce would think about how far humanity had come since his first contact with the Watchers 50 years ago. Pierce had believed that contact with alien civilizations would be the greatest achievement in human history, but he had not imagined that humanity would be thrust into a galactic war so soon. After learning about life beyond Earth, Luna proved to be even more valuable than Max had been in identifying threats and opportunities. For the liaison network, the dog could detect hostile alien influences that were almost impossible for humans to recognize. Luna had helped Jake discover and stop several attempts by hostile aliens to infiltrate human governments and corporations. Jake's work had taken him all over the world and even to secret bases on the moon where human and alien engineers were building spacecraft for Earth's defense fleet. He had met beings from dozens of different worlds and had learned that the universe was far more diverse and wonderful than humans had ever imagined. But Jake had also seen the devastation that hostile aliens could cause when they conquered a world. The Watchers had shown him images of planets where entire civilizations had been destroyed or enslaved by aggressive species. Jake understood that humanity was fighting not just for independence but for survival. The secret war for humanity's future was intensifying, and Jake knew that the time for secrecy was almost over. Within the next few years, the existence of alien life would become public knowledge, and humanity would have to unite to face the greatest challenge in the species' history. Jake looked forward to the day when he could work openly to protect humanity instead of operating in secret. He wanted people to know about the brave men and women who had sacrificed their normal lives to prepare their species for life among the stars. He wanted them to know about the Watchers and other peaceful aliens who had helped guide humanity toward survival. Most of all, Jake wanted people to know about Max and Luna and the other enhanced animals who had served as bridges between human and alien consciousness. These remarkable creatures had made contact between species possible and had helped save humanity from threats that people were only beginning to understand. Jake often returned to the alley where Max had first started barking at empty air. He would stand there with Luna and remember how a simple police investigation had led to the discovery of the most important secret in human history. A dog that would not stop barking had uncovered not just a 50-year-old cold case, but the hidden story of humanity's place in a vast and dangerous galaxy. The cold case had been solved, but the real mystery was just beginning. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars, and people like Jake would help guide the species through the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The future would be difficult, but Jake believed that humanity was ready for whatever the galaxy could offer.